She's just a friend, my husband insisted. But he shared his dreams, his fears, everything with her. One day, I confronted him, and he smirked, "You're overreacting." The next morning, I found a letter from her that proved otherwise. I was married to Daniel for 6 years. For the first few years, I thought we were solid. We had the kind of marriage people envied, at least, that's what I believed. We both had stable jobs, a beautiful townhouse in Chicago, and a golden retriever named Milo. We had our little routines, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and the newspaper, Friday date nights at our favorite pizza place, and long evening walks where we'd talk about everything and nothing. But then Olivia happened. At first, I didn't even notice. She was just a name Daniel mentioned here and there. A new project manager at his office. He'd casually bring her up. "Olivia had this great idea in the meeting today. Olivia said the funniest thing at lunch. Olivia loves that coffee place we went to last week." I didn't think much of it. Everyone has work friends. I had work friends too. But then, it didn't stop. Suddenly, Olivia's name was everywhere. It started with little things. Daniel had never been a big texter. He wasn't glued to his phone like some people, and honestly, I liked that about him. But one night, as we were watching TV, I noticed his phone screen light up. I glanced over. Olivia. He grabbed his phone so fast you'd think it was about to explode. I made a joke about it. "Wow, do you have national security secrets on there?" He laughed too hard. "No, it's just Olivia asking something about work." It became a pattern. His phone was suddenly always in his hand. Or face down. Or in his pocket. If I walked into a room, he'd quickly lock the screen. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. But then I started paying attention. Daniel had always been an open book with me. He'd tell me everything. What was going on at work, what was stressing him out, what stupid thing his coworker did that day. But now, when I asked, "How was your day?" he'd shrug. Same old. But later, I'd hear him on the phone, laughing. That deep, genuine laugh he used to save for me. I didn't need to ask who he was talking to. I already knew. The late-night texts turned into late-night calls. The calls turned into work dinners. The work dinners turned into him coming home later and later. And when he was home, he was somewhere else entirely. One evening, I woke up around 2 a.m. Daniel wasn't in bed. I found him in the living room, on the couch, whispering into his phone. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding, listening. "I just love talking to you," he said. "You get me in a way no one else does." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He noticed me standing there and froze. "Hey," he said, like I was the one acting weird. "What are you doing up?" I stared at him. His phone was still in his hand, but he wasn't hanging up. "Who are you talking to?" He sighed, like I was some nagging wife bothering him for no reason. "It's just Olivia. She was having a rough night." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab his phone and throw it against the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I just said, "Are you serious?" And you know what he did? He laughed. "You're overreacting," he said. "She's just a friend." I turned around and went back to bed. But I didn't sleep. And I knew, right then and there, that I needed proof. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention. Daniel was sloppy. He thought I wouldn't notice the tiny changes. The way he suddenly started wearing cologne to work when he never did before. How he'd take longer showers after coming home late. The new shirt I didn't buy him. Then there were the little accidents. One night, he was using his laptop, and I walked by. He slammed it shut so fast I almost jumped. "Jumpy, aren't we?" I said. "It's just boring work stuff," he muttered. Later, when he was in the shower, I opened his laptop. He wasn't careful. There, in his email drafts, was a letter to Olivia. It wasn't sent. It wasn't even finished. But it was enough. "I don't know what I'd do without you. I feel like you're the only person I can talk to. I can't stop thinking about you." I sat there, staring at the screen, nauseous. I took screenshots of everything. Then, I closed the laptop, walked into the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I waited. I gathered evidence. I started talking to a lawyer. I made sure that when I walked away, I'd leave him with nothing. But first, I wanted to make sure Olivia got exactly what she deserved. And I had the perfect way to do it. I started acting like nothing was wrong. If Daniel noticed how quiet I had become, he didn't show it. He was too caught up in her. Too confident that I was clueless. I kept playing my role as the trusting wife, cooking dinner, laughing at his half-hearted jokes, nodding along when he rambled about work. But inside, I was cold. Calculated. Waiting. And then, the perfect opportunity fell into my lap. One night, he left his phone on the coffee table while he was in the shower. It lit up. Olivia. I shouldn't have been able to unlock it. But guess what? He never changed his password. I opened their texts. And what I saw made my stomach churn. I miss you. I wish I was in your arms right now. When are you telling her? Telling me what? I scrolled up. Fast. And there it was. Daniel had promised her he was leaving me. He told her he was just waiting for the right moment to break the news. That he didn't want to hurt me. Hurt me? I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Daniel had already hurt me. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for him to play the grieving husband while running into Olivia's arms. I was going to burn his world down first. That weekend, Daniel had a business trip. He packed his suitcase like it was nothing. Kissed me goodbye like he wasn't about to spend the weekend in another woman's bed. The second he walked out the door, I put everything into motion. I had already been talking to a divorce lawyer. Now, I called our bank. See, the townhouse we lived in? It was in my name. The joint savings account? I had my own separate one too. And now? I transferred every last dollar that was mine. By the time Daniel checked his accounts, he wouldn't have access to a cent of it. But I wasn't done. Not even close. 2 days into his trip, I decided to take a little drive. Straight to Olivia's house. She lived in a cute little apartment in a trendy part of the city. One of those places with expensive plants in the windows and a bike rack out front. I knocked on her door. When she opened it, she froze. I smiled. Hi, Olivia. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Hi. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her apartment smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. It was cozy, filled with soft blankets and twinkling fairy lights. How sweet. I turned to face her. Daniel's out of town, right? She swallowed. Yeah. I nodded. And I'm guessing you know exactly where he is. Silence. Then, finally, a pathetic attempt at a lie. I don't know what you mean, I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I pulled out my phone and started reading their texts out loud. Every single one. Olivia's face went pale. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She had nothing to say. When I was done, I slid my phone back into my pocket and smiled. Just wanted to see what kind of woman gets involved with a married man. I took a slow, dramatic look around her apartment. Then I leaned in. He tell you he loves you yet? She barely nodded. I smirked. Yeah, he told me the same thing once. Then I turned around and walked out. The next morning, Daniel called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. When I finally answered, his voice was shaking. What the hell is going on? I can't log into our account. I sipped my coffee. Oh. That? Yeah. I moved my money. Silence. Then, you did what? Didn't you say you were leaving me? I said casually. Figured I'd just speed up the process for you. He lost it. He started yelling. Swearing. Demanding to know what I'd done. But I wasn't done yet. And he had no idea what was coming next. Daniel came home 2 days early. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee, when I heard his keys in the door. He stormed in. His face was red, his hair was a mess, and his suitcase was still in his hand, like he hadn't even stopped to drop it off. I didn't say a word. I just watched him. He threw his suitcase down so hard the handle snapped. What the hell did you do? I raised an eyebrow. Be more specific. His eyes were wild. You drained our account. You froze the mortgage. You took the goddamn car off my name, it's my car. And you told Olivia, he stopped, panting. Like just saying it out loud was too much. I tilted my head. Told Olivia what? The truth? His hands balled into fists. You ruined everything. I laughed. Oh, sweetheart. I'm just getting started. I expected him to beg. To try and talk his way out of it. But he didn't. Instead, he snapped. You are such a bitter, controlling. I cut him off. Careful. I'm still deciding how bad I want to make this for you. His mouth slammed shut. That's when I knew. Daniel wasn't angry because I had left. He was angry because I had left first. He had been counting on being the victim. On leaving me with a sob story to tell Olivia, maybe even making her feel bad enough to let him move in permanently. But now? He was a 34-year-old man with no money, no car, and no way to explain to his side chick why his life was suddenly falling apart. But he still had one card left to play. And he played it that night. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of someone at the front door. Not knocking. Scraping. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone and checked the cameras. Daniel. He was trying to unlock the door. The lock he no longer had a key for. I froze. Then I texted him. Me, if you break in, I'm calling the cops. He stopped moving. A second later, my phone rang. I answered but didn't say a word. His breathing was heavy. Just let me in. No, I just need to talk to you. Talk to your girlfriend. Silence. Then, he muttered, she kicked me out. Oh. So that was his plan. Run back to me because Olivia wasn't an option anymore. I almost laughed. But then, his voice changed. Lower. I don't have anywhere to go. I took a slow breath. Not my problem. And then I hung up. I watched him stand there for a few seconds. Just, standing. Then, finally, he turned around and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. I was so wrong. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Olivia. Olivia, I need to talk to you. Please. I stared at my phone. I had no reason to help her. But I was curious. I told her to meet me at a coffee shop near my place. When she walked in, she looked exhausted. Like she hadn't slept in days. She sat down, wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, and whispered, I think he's stalking me. I blinked. What? Daniel. She looked over her shoulder. I think he's following me. Oh. That was interesting. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me everything. And what she told me made my blood run cold. She started noticing it a few days ago. After she kicked him out, he had blown up her phone, calls, texts, even emails. She blocked him. That's when things got weird. One night, she left work late and saw a car parked near the exit. It looked familiar. But by the time she got outside, it was gone. Then, 2 days later, she got a call from a random number. It was Daniel. I just want to talk. She hung up. But the final straw? She woke up that morning, walked outside, and found a note on her car. I miss you. No name. No signature. But she knew. She knew. And now, she was scared. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I actually felt bad for her. Because Daniel was unraveling. And I had a feeling he wasn't done yet. I stared at Olivia. She looked small, like someone had pressed all the air out of her. This was not the woman who had stolen my husband. This was not the smug, flirty coworker who sent my husband texts at midnight. This was a woman who was afraid. And somehow, that scared me. Because if Daniel was willing to follow her, to leave notes on her car, to call her from random numbers even after she had blocked him, what else was he capable of? I took a slow breath. Did you go to the police? She shook her head. What am I supposed to say? That my married ex is being creepy? She let out a nervous laugh, but her hands were trembling. I exhaled. I had spent months thinking of Olivia as the enemy. But now? We were on the same side. The side that wanted to get rid of Daniel. I pulled out my phone. Give me the note. Her eyes widened. What? I'm handling this. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and handed it over. It was simple. Just 3 words scribbled in his handwriting. I miss you. I took a photo and sent it to Daniel. Then I typed, meet me in 1 hour. Usual place. I needed to see his face when he realized the walls were closing in. Daniel showed up exactly 1 hour later. It was our old favorite diner, the place we used to go every Sunday morning before things fell apart. He walked in, looking tired. Unshaven. Worn down. Good. He slid into the booth across from me. His eyes flicked around like he was nervous. He should be. You wanted to talk, he muttered. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and slid it across the table. His eyes dropped to the screen. The picture of his note. He went completely still. Olivia's scared of you. I kept my voice low, calm, controlled. He didn't blink. That's ridiculous. Is it? I leaned forward. Following her? Calling from random numbers? Leaving creepy-ass notes on her car? His jaw tightened. Then he scoffed. This is what you called me here for? Some overreaction from a guilty, I laughed. Loud. And then I shut him down. Overreaction? I hissed. Like when I asked you about Olivia and you told me I was imagining things? Like when you made me feel like I was crazy while you were sneaking around behind my back? His face went red. He hated when I turned his words back on him. I never cheated. His voice was sharp, defensive. I never even touched her while we were together. Oh, congrats. I clapped my hands slowly. Want a trophy for most respectful emotional affair? His jaw clenched. I loved you. Something inside me snapped. No, you didn't. My voice shook. You loved how easy I made your life. You loved the house, the stability, the way I handled everything so you never had to grow the hell up. I saw the moment my words hit him. He looked away. That's not fair. Fair? I let out a breathless laugh. You don't get to talk about fair. You don't get to act like you're the victim. His hands were shaking. His whole body was tense. And then, finally, he cracked. I screwed up. The words came out in a rush. His face crumpled. I screwed up so bad, and I don't know how to fix it. I stared at him. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw it. The truth. Daniel wasn't some master manipulator. He wasn't some charming, calculating liar. He was a mess. A weak, selfish man who thought he could juggle two lives until it all collapsed on top of him. I had spent so long being angry. So long planning revenge. And now? I just felt done. So done. I picked up my bag. You don't fix this. He looked up, eyes wide. Desperate. Wait, we're done, Daniel. I stood up. He grabbed my wrist. Please. I yanked it free. And I walked out the door. Daniel tried. 4 weeks. He sent apologies. Flowers. Long, pathetic emails. I ignored all of it. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was free. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I sold the townhouse and moved into a place of my own. A smaller apartment, nothing fancy, but mine. And Daniel? Last I heard, he was still in Chicago. Still broke. Still alone. As for Olivia, she actually moved away. Packed up and left the city entirely. I don't know where she went. And honestly, I don't care. Because for the first time in years, I don't have to think about either of them. And that feels better than revenge ever could.